Hello, everyone. I'm Meredith, and welcome to Conversations with Friends. And I'm really excited about this program. I know you might think I say that a lot, but especially about this program because what it stands for to me, I want to say in my personal life, but the life of many other people. It's a new play that's opening at Gable Stage, and it's about the lives of Leonard Cohen and Joni Mitchell. And we have today one of the stars of the show. I think there's only two stars. One is playing Joni Mitchell, and she's here with me right now. And I want to introduce her and Danielle Wertz. Danielle Wertz is a woman of many, many talents. She's a well-known jazz singer in New York City. She also composes. She does all kinds of things. She does folk, jazz, they say her voice is used as an instrumental texture to create an intimate and personal musical world. And she's also, this is exciting for us here in Miami, that she's a Music School graduate. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. And and we're also going to be interviewing later the co-star, right,
Yep.
of the program, yeah, of the show. It's at Gable Stage. So my first question really is, well, a lot of people, of course, know them, right? These two superstars,
Yeah.
but a lot of people know them for their music, and they might not even know who they are. Would that be accurate or not really? I mean, in my world, they're very well known, but Joni Mitchell and Leonard Cohen. If you mention it to just to anybody, would they know who it is?
I think for a lot of folks, they are household names.
Mhm.
And at the same time, also my parents, I think, are a good
Right.
example. My
Yeah.
mom is a big musical theater fan, was a big Motown fan. My dad loves classical music and classic rock. They both are like, oh, Leonard Cohen, hallelujah. And like Joni Mitchell, Big Yellow Taxi. And so they know those names, but they're not like deeply familiar with the music, I think, in the same way. So,
But a lot of people do know the songs. I mean, there are so many songs. And
sure.
like you say, Big Yellow Taxi or Put Up a Parking Lot. What was that called? I forget the title.
That one is Big Yellow Taxi.
The
Yep.
Yellow Taxi, right. I
Uh-huh.
mean, a lot of people of all generations have been brought up with this music and they might not know, oh, that's Joni Mitchell, although they are
Exactly.
legends. In the music world, these two people are legends. And so my question is, it's so interesting to me about you and how you created this, right? Because it
Mm.
started with the two of you, with you and Robbie, who plays I'm
Leonard.
blanking on Leonard. How did I blank
Uh,
on Leonard? I was thinking of Joel. Leonard Cohen. You both came together and thought, let's do a musical show, but not, it was like a nightclub show to begin with, right?
well, interestingly enough, actually, the show was not our idea to begin with. It was the
Yeah.
theaters. So, Signature Theater in the DC
Yeah.
area, Robbie can speak more to this, but he starred in and wrote and created an original musical in 2018 at Signature Theater.
Mhm.
And they have a main stage as well as a smaller black box cabaret room. And so they have lots of cabarets cycling through that space. And so because they know Robbie through his musical that he debuted there, they reached out to him and said, hey, would you be willing to do a Joni Mitchell cabaret? And
Mm.
his counter proposal was, I don't know if me doing a Joni Mitchell solo cabaret is the right fit, but I've been getting really into Leonard Cohen's music, and they had a brief love affair and a lifelong friendship. I think it would be a more interesting narrative to actually have a Joni Mitchell Leonard Cohen cabaret joint if you guys can find a Joni Mitchell, someone to play Joni. So the theater actually eventually, through a long process, found me and they sort of set us up on like a musical blind date and asked us to create it together. So that's kind of how it all began.
That's pretty good. That really
Yeah.
is. Uh, did you have a sense of the two of them already, or was
Mm.
this all new for you, these two people, two singers?
Joni is I mean, Joni is like a spiritual leader for me, I will say.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this in a few interviews recently, but I think it's worth repeating. I'm a jazz musician first and foremost. And when the pandemic happened, I could not listen to jazz. It like, yeah, it wasn't what I needed. It was a reminder of what I wasn't able to do at the time, and the only music that I could stomach was Joni. So I feel like I mean, her music really carried me through one of the most difficult chapters for me.
Um,
That was, and I had really started getting into her music in like 2014, but I took a deeper dive during the pandemic. So it was such sweet serendipitous timing in 2022 after I had been listening to all of her records on repeat for 2 years to be asked to create this show. So that's
so she had an influence on your life, in your
absolutely,
life during a time when, so much closed up, right? So much just
absolutely.
ended, especially for performers. And you're a New York City performer mainly, right? You're in New York,
Mhm. Yeah.
doing many jazz clubs and all kinds of concerts. And you've got so many awards for your composing, for everything that you do, for your singing. And so I find that interesting because out of something spiritually, how we would look at that, is out of something really negative, which was COVID and everybody being stuck in their apartments and houses all over, something really super creative came.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that, because you probably have a lot of artists that are your friends, musical artists and everything. I was wondering if that things like that happen to others as well.
Definitely. I mean, I think a lot of us stayed deeply connected to art, but shifted
Mhm.
mediums that we
Mm.
were used to. I think for a lot of people, again, for me, I mean, listening to jazz was this reminder of what I wasn't able to do anymore. And I will say, a lot of um well, no, I'm going to pivot and say something different, actually. What I will say is that there's a lot of folk music that is there's like introspective storytelling happening and reflection that's happening lyrically that I'm a huge instrumental modern jazz lover.
Mhm.
And there's just not that same level of poetic inquiry. It's just not, it offers so many other different things. But when looking for answers, I was turning to Joni. And I think a lot of my peers similarly were like, I'm looking for spiritual answers from art right now, not just a creative medium for expression. And so a lot of folks turn to even meditation practices and began painting and different things like that. So
It's kind of an amazing thing, that the arts can do that. And I know personally, my spiritual awakening, actually, I was working full time at a PBS station, really worked there my whole life,
mm,
and caught up in, my work. And well, just to be real quick, I was listening to some music out in San Francisco, and it did something to me. It actually awakened me, and I couldn't understand, what that was. It was some ancient music, kind of new agey music. And I came back and started searching for music that would make me feel that way.
yeah.
So I really believe, just from my own experience, that
Mm,
music can actually transform people's lives, maybe more than anything, can awaken. I should say awaken, right?
absolutely.
And so I'm wondering what you're feeling when people come, because you know things happen to people when they're watching and they're experiencing this kind of music. And I was looking at some of the not the promos, but some of the interviews with people about experiencing coming to coming to the show in Washington D.C. And the man, I guess it was Washington D.C., right? Yeah, it was. The man, what did he say? It was so cool. The man that just keeps coming back over and
Oh, that he had seen the show 12 times.
over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not uncommon with this show. We've learned there is it caught us a little bit by surprise, but there's a container in the room during
Hmm.
this show in the way that sometimes there is in other concerts and in a way that's in some ways much deeper and more it's just really palpable, the feeling. And Robbie and I have done a lot of reflecting about what creates that and why. And I think there's this beautiful combination of, for a lot of people, this music is it's steeped in nostalgia for them, kind of like you spoke to earlier. It's music that you listen to at a really formative time in your life. And so folks show up to the show and they're excited to hear all of these songs that they already have relationships with.
Yeah.
And then the stories of Joni and Leonard's that we've woven in, as well as the stories of our own that we've woven in, sort of maybe offer the reminder that this music is as relevant as ever. And so to have the nostalgia mixed with something that is could have been written yesterday based on what's happening in the world around us or emotionally or internally and all these, there are so many layers to this music. And so I think Robbie put it really beautifully a few months ago. He said, originally, when we created this show, we thought it was about Joni and Leonard. And the longer that we dug into the music and the stories, we realized that it was equally about us and our relationships to these songs. And then once we finally played it in front of a live audience, we realized it's more about the audience and the people in the room than it is about us or Joni and Leonard. So it's kind of, there's this threefold this threefold sort of layered connection, which I think keeps people coming back again and again.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you said it because theater really is about, but it doesn't necessarily always happen. It is about often reflection, and going in and connecting to whatever's happening on the stage. But these two people were very spiritual. Especially Leonard Cohen. He was searching, right? He was on a search. He was a Buddhist. What else he was? Then he was
raised in an Orthodox Jewish household.
Jewish. Yeah. So
yeah. Leaning in and pulling away from those traditions equally in every moment, And Joni similarly, she in the song All I Want, she says looking for something in the lyrics several times. I'm on a lonely road and I'm traveling, looking for something. What can it be? Like she's always on this search. And she speaks to that a lot in her lyrics, which I resonated with very, very deeply.
This is really like a personal kind of experience for you. I guess every play is, or every show that you do is, but this is different. There's something different. And it almost has like a magical quality of bringing back something from the past, into the present. And do you think maybe it's even like we're talking about what happened during COVID, but even now more so, more relevant than ever with,
Definitely.
so much people are questioning now and people are feeling empty and, there's fear and all of this. And you listen to them and you just feel good, don't you?
Oh my gosh, it's just medicine. Yeah.
Well, in meditation classes that I've done, often we would play Leonard Cohen, or we never played Joni Mitchell in meditation, but some of his songs we play, but I guess we could play it all. So I want to know, how did you prepare to become her for the play? What did you have to do?
Well, the interesting thing is, Robbie and I would call it a theatrical concert more than I would call it a play. When I step on stage, maybe I am embodying her a little bit, but I'm not taking on the character. We're not playing the roles of Leonard.
Okay.
So, which is a really interesting kind of shift, I think. So Robbie is Robbie and I am Danielle, and we are speaking to and singing the music of Joni and Leonard, but we're not playing them. But I think in each individual song, I will say the music they've written, from the first, 3 notes of the songs, you're in that world. They both had a way of composing music that just put you in a new setting from the beginning. And so although the dialogue in between each song is Robbie and Danielle talking as Robbie and Danielle, when the lights open into a new song, it feels like a new world that we've stepped into. And so I think preparing to embody the music with the
Mm,
intentions that it was written with is something that we've spent a lot of time on. And I think the way that Robbie and I both have prepared to do that is to really fine tune our understanding of why we connect so deeply with this music. I think it's
mm,
easy to say, oh, I love that song. It just makes me feel better. But why? I think we've done a lot of internal inquiry about even just reading between the lines with some of those lyrics and learning more and more about certain lines of Leonard's, like in Hallelujah, there's a blaze of light in every word. Well, what does that come from? And actually, is there something in the Jewish teachings that speak to blaze of light in every word? And what was
like,
Leonard speaking to? And so we've really dug deep into into each of those songs. And I think that's helped us prepare.
oh, so in a way, it's been like a personal journey for the
Mhm.
two of you. But I mean, you seem very close to each other. Close, you have a really good relationship, a working relationship. It isn't on the surface. Just we're doing. I mean, maybe that happens with every play. I don't know. I was never an actor, but it sounds to me that this is just kind of pulling you both to kind of grow. And
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what their music does. And it's something Joni has been quoted saying many different times. She has said, if you're seeing me in the music, you're not getting anything out of it. Her wish is for all of the listeners to see themselves in her songs. And if we're seeing ourselves, we're actually getting something out of it. And I think it's exactly what their music has done for us in creating the show.
has it been difficult, or I mean, like you say, you've been introspective and you've been growing. It's almost like you're going through a process with this.
Hmm.
But have there been any challenges, in terms of the whole show of doing music? But you are, already someone, you are a singer and a jazz singer, and so in a way, you have so much experience. And I could go
Yeah.
the next hour showing some of your, all the experience that you've had and everything. So you're trained basically, right? So in a way that makes it easier in that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I think I'm someone who has been very called to introspection since I was young. So it's not new. I think, that's why I have been so drawn to a creative life as an artist. But um I think what's been a little, if there have been any challenges, I think the challenge is that when the show was created in 2022, you know, in Virginia, at least in the DC area, we were so on the brink of just coming back out of COVID shutdowns and people having just been vaccinated or people just feeling comfortable being back in public in a room full of 120 people. And when we first did the show, like there was still a mask mandate. We were on stage and people were kind of holding their breath in the room, feeling a little unsteady. And there was an intimacy and a fragility in the room that year because of that. And I think the challenge, if anything, for us with this show has been as the times change and as the world, unfurled again and current events change and life cycles change and um, yeah, as the world kept on turning, was the show going to feel as impactful? And so the challenge for us was, at least, we brought the show to Signature Theater or we created it at Signature Theater in 2022. And then they asked us back again to do it in 2023. And so we did the run, 7 shows a week for 2 weeks. And then we didn't do it for a year. And then when we revisited it the following year, we had all these questions about, well, this thing isn't as relevant and this piece of the dialogue isn't true anymore or whatever. And so I think the challenge has been, how can we ensure that it still feels like it was created 3 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Um,
to really make it just current right now, and the world
exactly.
not like you say the way it was.
Mhm.
But this music does, as we're talking about, interest does speak to that introspection as we're talking about. It's not about just listening to a pop song, you know, and enjoying the words. And I was listening to one thing on my car is all the hits, right? And I just like to listen to a lot of the songs I don't like and some I do like, you know, whatever the pop current hits, just to hear what people are, you know, are listening to and everything. And they're more, they're not usually so introspective like Leonard Cohen's and Joni Mitchell's, you know, they're more, you're entertained and you know, I kind of laugh at some of the songs and I mean, some of them, you know, they're very loving. And I mean, there's, you know, they deal with situations and everything, but both of these people are poets. And that's the difference. You know, they're poets and they are true artists,
Yeah.
aren't they?
I mean, we say it in the
Yeah.
show. Leonard Cohen was a poet before he was a songwriter, and he was sort of forced on stage with a guitar and was just kind of started singing this poetry that he had written. And Joni was a painter first. She wasn't a songwriter first.
I think she had an art book, right, about her paintings that I
Yeah,
was
I have it.
reading. And yeah, so I'm wondering if you were to bring them back, they came back and they were sitting maybe in the third row or something of this upcoming theater event. What do you think they would say?
You know, it's hard to tell. I mean, Joni is someone who's always had what's the word I want to use? I'll just say interesting. Joni's had an interesting relationship with fame and with the limelight and the spotlight. Um, you know, she finds it difficult to be on stage, or at least before her Hollywood Bowl chapter, she did. You know, I've seen a lot of interviews, and read a lot of every book that there is. I've tried to read it about her. And, you know, she'd release a record and she would tour, and the time in the spotlight would be hard for her. And she would disappear off into the Canadian wilderness and threaten to never come back. And that time was almost to recover from the time she spent in the spotlight. So I am curious, you know, of course she knows there are so many tribute shows about her. This one I personally think is a little different because it's not just your biggest hits concert. It's got more of a narrative in there, but I don't know how she would feel about it. I'm so curious, and Leonard too. I mean, I think that's yeah, the beauty of
Yeah.
I don't know, the beauty of doing the best you can and letting
That's
it
it.
have a life of its own.
That's your job, right? That's to me
Yeah.
what it's all about whenever we do anything. I think that, you know, has the creativity, and you both have so much creativity, you know, and talent, that's really maybe not to think too much, you know, about
Yeah,
who's listening, who's watching, who's, you know, how many people are in the audience. None of that matters, does it? I mean, it's more in the being,
right.
the
Yeah.
doing.
And my hope would be, you know, there was a review at one point that we got while the show was up at Signature Theater that mentioned the reverence that we both have for the two of them. And that would just be my hope, is that if, you know, if they were sitting in the third row, I would hope that they could feel the reverence that we have. And I would hope that, you know, we're not trying to replicate the two of them. And I think from what I've gathered about Joni in interviews and in books, like she's not about copying. She's about innovation and trying something new. And, you know, she reinvented sort of different ways of playing the guitar to give herself the sonic canvas that she wanted. I feel like she wouldn't want any replication. I think I would assume she'd want us to embody her music and make it our own. So
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think she'd be very happy to see you and to see that her music has returned in a different way, but in the kind of way that she would like it, you know, is something very creative and very thoughtful. And Gable Stage, that's what Gable Stage is all about as well. You know, it's just a wonderful theater that you're in. And, you know, we could talk more about how it came and how we did talk some, but, you know, it's just a whole interesting story and everything, you know, that you're going to be there. Well, when everybody watches this, you'll already be there. But it's just a pleasure to get to interview you. And we will be back in about a minute with Robbie, who plays Leonard Cohen. And so we will continue with the story. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me, and look forward to seeing you at one of the shows.
You will. We're back, and now I'm very delighted to introduce you to the co-star of the special show, the special wonderful show that's happening at the Gable Stage very soon, like right now, pretty soon, and it's called Both Sides Now. Joni Mitchell and Leonard Cohen, in case you missed it with the first interview with Danielle, and it's Robbie. My guest right now is the co-star who plays. Who do you think he plays? Right, Leonard Cohen. So he's Robbie Schaefer, and he's a singer, songwriter, theater, film artist, and I don't know if I should save this, and many other things. He's also the guitarist and songwriter for the indie folk band, right? Eddie from Ohio.
Yep.
And he's recorded several solo albums. And I mean, I could keep going on, Robbie. But
I've heard it before. It's okay.
yes, right. I saw all that in your bio. And I think there was one thing I am missing, and we will mention it later because I think it's so connected to this, but we will talk about that in a little while.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Danielle was saying about how it was such a really kind of almost a spiritual experience for her to be part of this. And because she's, long loved, well, not so long compared to the rest of us, right? Both of you, but Leonard Cohen and Joni Mitchell. And I was wondering what was the experience for you, because you were doing this we call it review or show already in Washington. And so now it's coming to Miami, which we're excited about.
Yeah. I do think there's something extremely deeply spiritual about the show.
Mm-hmm.
And Danielle and I feel it every night we go on stage, really. And I'm not really sure what to call that thing, it's that which I guess is the proof in the pudding in a way, right? It's that when we I find that there is something at the center of all life that we can't grasp. That humans can't quite grasp, and we have names for that. We have little whether the name is God or the name is spirit or the name is whatever, the spaghetti monster,
Right.
Whatever you choose to call that. There's something we can't grasp that's at the center of life, and for me, I just hope to have the courage and the humility to be in relationship with that. And I find that this show and this music brings me there nightly.
Just by performing in it and connecting also with the audience, who's, from what I saw of some of the videos of your past productions up north, the audience was feeling that too. It was an experience, a spiritual kind of experience for the audience.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really about the music and who these two were, still are.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Cohen, and Joni Mitchell. I mean, because they were, and we were talking again about that, Danielle, that they really were both such spiritual people, and especially Leonard Cohen. I mean, he was a seeker, wasn't he?
Very much so, yeah. And I think that's one of the main ways I connect with him and his music, as a lifelong seeker myself. And I think he was a seeker in the sense of, not meaning that he sort of didn't know where he belonged or spiritually, or he was spiritually curious is what he was. And so while he grew up as an Orthodox Jew in an Orthodox family, and he never felt not Jewish in his life, even when he was spending lengthy amounts of time in Buddhist monasteries, for instance. He didn't see a separation between the two.
Yeah. Well, I think all spiritual practices, they do have that connection, which is, like you were saying, it is something with the spirit, and it could be music, it could be the words, it could be just what goes on, in the place that, the sacred space, it could be that. And
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of kind of touching that spot, right? Of just, I mean, I personally, and I mentioned it already, that had my first spiritual experience in a restaurant in California, in San Francisco, where I was listening to music. The music was in the background, and I suddenly felt like I was in another time or something. And
Wow.
there was some new age music, this is so many years ago, that was my first experience. New age music that was, someone said, "Oh, don't you know what that is? They play it on your radio station." Where I worked in WLRN PBS, and we had WLRN radio, NPR, and they said they play it on your radio station every Sunday night, Hearts of Space. I think it was Hearts of Space, and I didn't even know that. So again, it was like, to me, music. Do you think music, maybe more than anything, is just has a way of touching people without even have to think? It's not about reading so much, or, I mean, study is important once you're on the way, right? But at the beginning,
I, yeah.
just the feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're pointing at something that's really, really important and essential, which is that um, any of the things you're talking about, whether it's music or nature or even a spoken word, these are just pointers. They're not the thing in and of itself, right? They're what they do, and meditation does this as well, of course, is meditation tries to quiet our minds enough
Mhm.
that we get out of our own way,
Yeah.
right? And that thin veil between us and a larger consciousness starts to dissolve. And it sounds like that's what happened to you in the restaurant. And I do think music is often the greatest tool we have for this. Why? Because I like to say music is the language we have for the language-less places in us. So
Mhm.
it even music with lyrics will somehow bypass your brain at some point, and then you're just experiencing, you're actually just embodying um, the music or embodying yourself in a moment, and that's a good thing.
It's a great thing, isn't it? It really is. And actually, as I was saying, was the beginning of my spiritual search, just hearing that music. And then I ended up meditating, going to a center. And here I am 30 something years later at this
Oh, wow.
meditation center that you're on the program. We've been doing these kinds of programs for a long time. And yeah, so when you're up there, when you're performing, you have to become Leonard Cohen? Is that, I mean, is that part of it too? It's not just you're, playing a
I,
role of somebody. It's somebody, really
right.
somebody amazing. Yeah.
It's a good question. I don't actually have to become Leonard Cohen, and I don't
Mhm.
try to. And technically in the show, neither Danielle nor I are playing these characters.
Okay.
We're really just playing ourselves,
Good.
as affected by this music, as people who know this music, who um, through whom this music can be interpreted. And um, so while I don't play Leonard Cohen, and I wouldn't want that. Um,
Yeah.
but I do like to think that at my best moments, there is something of the essence of Leonard Cohen that I'm helping to channel.
Sure. Like something, even though you're not playing Leonard Cohen, your energy and and the songs, of course, as soon as
Yeah.
you start singing these amazing songs, and he's had one song hit after another for so many years. And I remember I went to a concert, maybe one of his last ones some years ago in Fort Lauderdale, actually, Florida. And my husband didn't know much about him, which really surprised me. Or maybe he heard, because I loved him since I was in high school, really, and Joni Mitchell
Uh-huh.
a long time ago. And my husband, my late husband, he said, like, well, who's coming to this, And it was a gigantic theater, like a, big theater, not a theater even, like a very large, like the Broward Theater. It was really large, bigger than
Okay.
that, actually. And he looked around and he saw, people of all, just everything, there were Orthodox people, there were people that, kind of felt they were Buddhists. There were just all kinds of people in the audience. And
Yeah.
that's what's really interesting about Leonard Cohen, isn't it? That he can draw everybody. Doesn't matter what religion or background.
Yeah, I think
Like
that
the
was
Dalai
true.
Lama does that too, in that
Yeah.
way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was true. And I think he especially toward the latter part of his career in life, um, so many of his concerts, I never had the pleasure of actually being able to go to one, but so many of them it felt like he was blessing the audience. And
Beautiful.
it was really it became completely about the music and not about the music at all, you know.
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
and so there's a beautiful moment where his last concert, I don't remember what year it was, but his
yeah.
last concert in Tel Aviv,
Mm.
actually,
Oh, yeah.
this massive outdoor concert, and at the end, the oldest blessing in all of Judaism is the priestly blessing. It's known literally. It has been transmitted exactly as it exists today for thousands of years. It hasn't changed.
Mm.
And at the end, he blessed the entire audience with the priestly blessing. It's so profound. You can find that on YouTube. It's incredible.
Oh, I'm gonna have to take a look, and which kind of leads me to my next thought of,
Okay.
or should I say what I want to talk about with you is that you're on your way, right, to become a rabbi. I don't know how far along, but
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you. Actually, uh, quite far along because,
Really?
well, I'm actually being ordained this weekend,
Oh, my
um,
goodness.
which by the time people are listening to this will have already happened. So you can start calling me
Uh,
um,
when
Master
I'm going to
Universe.
be at the show, and I will call you Rabbi. Right, right.
No,
So
please
how
don't.
did that happen?
Robbie will
I
be
mean,
good enough.
okay, Rob, how about Rabbi Robbie?
Rabbi Robbie, sure, why not? He'll be able to arrange.
Yeah, people are pretty casual today, in those ways with rabbis, with,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
I think maybe all religions. Yeah. So what led you to here you were, performer and actor and all of these things, composer and everything. Well, I was reading so many things that you've done and you continue to do. So where was the awakening or the realization that
Yeah.
to be a rabbi?
I don't know if I had if I can point to a specific, I mean, yes, I could point to a few specific spots and a very specific moment where I suddenly knew that I wanted to go to rabbinical school. But I will say that sort of the condensed version is that I grew up like a lot of liberal American Jews,
Mm-hmm.
with a nominal Jewish education, more or less, that I wasn't really invested in. And I was bar mitzvah at 13. And then I said, I'm out. There's nothing in this for me. This isn't very interesting. It certainly doesn't move me spiritually. And I probably spent the next, 2 or 3 decades spiritually seeking, as we were talking before.
Yeah.
And I explored Buddhist meditation, and I sat at the feet of a guru, and um, I read books like the Lost Sutras of Jesus. I mean, I was open to everything, and actually, the truth of it was that I found both beauty and truth in all of those traditions, and none of them felt like home.
Mm. I
And
like that. I mean, I like that honesty and that it just wasn't right, for you. It was good, and there are parallels, definitely, but
very much so, especially with Buddhism. But yeah, I certainly I love Buddhist practice, and I love Buddhist ethical philosophy, for instance, but I never thought about becoming a
a
Buddhist,
Buddhist,
or
sure.
even occurred to me, because I'm a Jew. That's what
Yeah.
I am, and
Yeah.
and I when I realized that at a certain point, a variety of things and people opened doors for me, spiritual doors into Judaism that I'd never known existed, and it turned out that Judaism has a long history of meditation. Judaism has a long history of stillness and silence. Judaism has a long history of mysticism. And all of the things I'd been seeking for in other traditions had been there all along. And plus, it was home. And so that first returned me to my own Jewish traditions. And then it was a few years after that that I realized that I felt a calling to aid in the flourishing of the Jewish people. That's what I want to do, whether it's music in both sides now or anything else that I do. I want to aid in the flourishing of the Jewish people, however I can do that. And for whatever reason, it made sense to me to become a rabbi in order to do that better.
The way you're saying it, it makes sense to me that you have found your place, the right place. You know, there's somebody in Miami, a scholar, Dr. Nathan Katz, who was born Jewish, and he kept telling his parents when he was like 7 years old, I want to go to India. And he had this pull to go to India.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to go to India. And then years later, when he was old enough, he went and he became a Buddhist. And it's kind of like your story.
Yeah.
Wait till I tell you the rest. So he was practicing as a Buddhist and he loved Buddhism and everything. And then at some point, the Dalai Lama himself, he was very close with the Dalai Lama, and he actually helped bring the Dalai Lama to America. And there's a book, I have the book even, The Jew and the Lotus. And
of course, I've heard of that.
The Dalai Lama said, go back to Judaism. And
Wow.
he did. And he did. And he also founded the Center for Spirituality at Florida International University in Miami. And he's retired now, but he's an amazing, and did books on the Jews of India. He's an amazing guy, kind of like you, you know?
Yeah, I would love to.
Found his place, but he loves Eastern philosophy, and there's a place in his heart for that. And I think that's a beautiful thing, you know, when people have to find what works for them, what really gives you that spirit, that feeling of spirit.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you've had a lot of very good response. I mean, in other places where you have both done this show, right?
Yeah.
So you're expecting the same kind of response, or is it different with each city? Or
a good question. The show is brand new every night in that way, depending on the audience, because I think, and I've always taken this approach to performance, and there is a performative aspect, of course, but at its best, it's a conversation. It's a relationship that the artists are in with the audience. It has to go both ways. At least that's what I prefer. And this show does that nightly. It's really, really special. And so yeah, it's been going incredibly well. I wouldn't say it surprises us anymore just because we've been doing it long enough. But when it first started 2 years ago at Signature Theater in Washington, D.C., it caught us completely off guard how the show was affecting people and what we were getting back from them. And it was quite a profound experience. And so, yeah, now that we've been on tour with it, we're finding that in other cities. And I know, the whole Gable Stage run is close to sold out already, which will be wonderful. That doesn't guarantee that we're going to have a beautiful conversation, but my guess is we will.
Yeah, you definitely will. And I know it's going to be a true success in Miami. And we were talking earlier, Danielle said about how it's almost sold out. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to get my tickets, because I tend to be late with buying tickets and things. And I always fill their seats. But when she said that, I said, after I do this interview with Robbie, I'm going to go get my tickets. I want to invite her.
Well, if you can't find any, I'm guessing you might know a person or two who could help you out. So
right. Little connections, just a little, no, not really. But I love the theater, and I love Barry Newport, and the work that she's been doing. And I'm excited to see your show. You call it a show? Or yeah, it's a show. I didn't know if it has.
Yeah, we do call it a show. Yeah.
I think you said something like a review or something different, but it's a show. A show is a show, right?
A show is a show. We often call it a theatrical concert because it is
like that.
It's set up like a concert, but it's a scripted evening. The show doesn't change night to night, other than, of course, what's happening inside the room. But in terms of what we say and what we sing, is pretty much the same every night.
Well, I can tell already, I can feel it already, that some very good things, exciting things are going to happen within that room. They definitely are. Miami's ready for you. And
good. We're so excited.
So it's a pleasure to get to meet you.
Thank you so much.
And look forward to seeing you at the theater. And again, congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you.
Thank you.